So conformity involves a response to an expectation, right? Compliance is a little different than conformity in that it involves a request, a little more pressure. However, like conformity, compliance can also occur inside or outside of our awareness. Ellen Langer and her colleagues in their humorous copy machine study found that people often comply mindlessly. A researcher approached people in line and asked, "Excuse me, but may I use a copy machine?" Or sometimes added the phrase, "because I am in a rush." Not surprisingly, people were far more likely to comply when this explanation was added. But in a third condition, the experimenter gave a reason that made no sense. In fact, it was not really a reason at all. They said, "Excuse me, may I use the copy machine? Because I have to make some copies." He got just as much compliance as the reasonable explanation. This is called the because heuristic. Because when we hear the word because, we often assume that it is followed by a real reason. Surely we would pay more attention if we're being asked to buy a product, donate money, or volunteer some time, don't you think? Ha! Even then, you might be surprised to find how many social influence tricks can still influence us. Our own Bob Cialdini, ASU's Bob Cialdini, took time off from being a professor to live the life of a salesman, and through his experiences identified a number of social compliance techniques. Did you ever receive a free gift of labels in the mail, customized with your name and address, but then found they came with a request to donate to the charity? Reciprocity norms. That's our first one here. We treat others as they treat us. We have a tendency to treat others as they treat us. And these norms are so strong that such inexpensive so-called gifts tend to compel people to donate more than they ever would have agreed to pay for the labels. Interestingly, people who don't donate tend to toss the labels because using them with them prompt guilt. The foot in the door technique involves getting your foot in the door, so to speak, with a small initial request that can't easily be refused, and then asking for something larger. In one study we're going to call the homemaker study, experimenters pretended to be employed by a consumer organization and telephoned a number of homemakers asking a very small request if they would answer a couple of questions about household products. Not surprisingly, most complied. 3 weeks later, those who complied, along with new homemakers, were approached with an outrageous request. If they would allow a team of men into their homes for 2 hours to rummage through their drawers and cupboards, taking an inventory of household products. Who do you think were significantly more likely to comply? The ones who got the small request first complied, or those who didn't get that request first, the new people? Those who agreed to the small request first were far more likely to agree to the much larger one. The researcher had gotten their foot in the door, so to speak, by getting them to comply to the small request first. When Tom finished undergrad, he bought a red Celica before leaving for grad school. Tom negotiated a really good price with the salesman, who then disappeared to go write it up. Right? A few minutes later, he came back out empty-handed, telling Tom that his boss would not approve the deal. The best deal he could give him was $500 more than what they had agreed upon. This is called lowballing. This is changing the deal when it has already been agreed upon. And it is hard for people to deal with this because for a limited time, they think the product is theirs, so they perceive this as a loss. Oftentimes, people will reduce their dissonance in their case by agreeing to the new deal. lowballing.